So when I said I was like 12, I was home with my mom. The light went out, and I was like, man, the JPS guys came through, and they kind of just haphazardly yanked off the lines, right? Because they're just yanking off, right? Um, and then I went outside and I saw that, and I ran, got the ladder. I went and got some construction gloves. Those big, thick ones. And I put it on the pole and I started climbing, trying to be a man when I'm just a boy, right? And I took the ladder, I started climbing, all while my heart, if I think about it now, I can feel how my heart was beating in my chest, like right now. Fear than I ever felt before. I was like, man, I think I can figure this. I've seen them done it a lot, climbing up. I second guessed myself and I was like, you know what? I don't think I should touch that line today. I'm 100% certain that if I had gone and messed with that wire, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Well, welcome to Energy Bridge, Sheldon. We're going to just talk about all kinds of different fun things, but when we first met, you told me a little bit about your story, and I just thought it was really interesting and something we should share. So, tell me about you coming up. I think is what you say.
So
coming up in Jamaica.
So from like how far we're going back?
Yeah,
like the beginning, or kind of just like.
Well, you're from Jamaica, right?
I am born and raised. I came here when I was 19.
Okay.
19, but I can go back a little further than 19. The reason why I actually got here is because of track and field.
Okay.
It's very similar, I would imagine, to even the States. A way out, as you'd call it, is through athletics. And I had track. I was a very active child growing up, so played a lot of cricket. I was the one that, like on Sundays, when it's time to do chores, my mom have the gospel music blurting out loud, because that's what Jamaicans do on Sundays. But it's when you hear the loud gospel music in Sunday morning, waking you up on the bed, you know it's time for chores. I would disappear, playing cricket from like 8 in the morning to like 9 at night. Or I'll play cricket, then stop playing cricket, play some basketball, stop playing some basketball, go play some soccer, football, or whatever, right? So I was a very energetic kid, but kind of growing up, I would say I had a critical think a lot. I think that was just something for me that was just inbred. It was just like a gift. I don't know if you call it like problem solving, critical thinking was just something that I've always done. So even if I see kids just doing random things that kids are just being kids doing, I'm that awkward kid showing up, messing up the fun. Like, you guys are playing football or soccer right now. Do you not see like 5 different random things spiking out the ground? What if one of y'all fall on that and die? Like, I was that kid at like 7, 8, messing up the other kids' fun. Because what kids is really thinking about that, right?
Okay.
They're just having fun. So I would say, but kind of just growing up, I got into, so just because that's how I was naturally.
Sort of inquisitive.
Like,
Okay.
Yes. I was doing all these sports and I was like, well, which one do you think is gonna, and I thought this very, very earlier on, which one of these sports do you think you have the best shot of actually getting a scholarship at?
Oh, okay.
That's what I thought in my young brains. And I had no adults, nothing. That just came in my brain. And at the time, well, even now, you've always been like a huge amount of athletes getting scholarships to come here, right? To come to the US, because that was the ultimate goal for me, to come to the US. Funny enough, when I was around 16, one of my aunt asked me, because at that age, you're getting ready to leave high school in Jamaica, and either you're going to go work or you go to higher education, or you get a scholarship, right? But in my country, and I'm not just trying to paint a bad light, is like society determine who you become by the grade 6. Almost, yeah. Because by grade 6, if you're not like academically inclined enough, you start to like legit fall off. And if you don't have some type of athletic ability to kind of keep you ahead too, you just fall off. So you're either just subservient or you become this type of elite. So there's hardly any like in between, you see? And one time my aunt was like, hey, because I used to run track all the time, because I chose track. Out of all those sports, I chose track, right? And then my aunt was like, Sheldon, when are you gonna stop running and actually start doing something else that can actually help your future? And I told my aunt, I was like, I'm not gonna stop running until I run to America. How rude is that, right? You shouldn't even talk like that, right? But to me, I think at the time I felt it was an assault on my dreams. At the time I felt that, and she didn't mean, I don't think she meant anything harmful by it, but she was at a level where, you know, and now she's seen her young nephew just kind of doing random stuff. Like, this ain't going to get you a job. You know, this is not going to do stuff, or you need to go work or something. And I'm like, that's not my future, miss. I'm running far as possible from here. So long story short, of course, you got to do the work. So I did the work, got the scholarship. It was kind of scary for me though, because I was doing really, really well coming up doing athletics. My final year, they call it class 1. My final year, I had a horrible hamstring injury. Oh, horrible. Imagine this. You're working your whole life at that point, because I started seriously at maybe like 13. Yeah, it was doing like all age, like middle school or elementary or whatever, but seriously was at like age 13, which is first form in my country. I think that's like middle school here, 6th, 7th, 8th grade or thereabout, right? And I was trying to, I was doing it serious at that point all the way up till I was like 18, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's a lot of years, Mm-hmm. And then the year that I was supposed to get the big scholarship to go to LSU, because they're the ones that was scouting me, I just destroyed my hamstring. So I almost ended up with no scholarship. I got lucky. The coach of LSU at the time, I think he was like a San Diego old boy or something like that, if I'm remembering right. He was like a alumni of my high school. Mm-hmm. So he knew about me, that I actually had talent. It's just that I hurt myself. And he was like, there's no way we can take you to LSU like this. You're going to need, because you got such a bad hurt, you're going to have to redevelop. So they actually gave me a scholarship to go to a D2 school.
Okay.
So that's how I actually came to the States.
I did used to run track, yeah. So that is something we have in common.
Oh, you used to run track?
I did, yeah.
What event did you run?
Believe it or not, I was a hurdler.
What?
Yeah. So the thing is that the reason why I was a hurdler is because my left hamstring is very chronically tight. Okay. And so, but I could kick just enough to get over the hurdle with my right leg, and then my left leg would always trail. So I could get that. So I literally just could make it over the hurdles, but I love.
First time you ever said that, man.
Oh yeah, no,
that's why we talk like this, because I'm a hurdler.
Yeah.
I did the 110 and the 400.
400, yeah.
So you earned that.
Yep. Intermediate hurdle, yeah. So and I did make it. I did okay. I went to a school named Chaminade, which was well known for lacrosse, and I actually would have played more lacrosse, but I injured my hand my freshman year. So that's why I ended up at. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yep.
It's so tormenting, right?
Right, and I wasn't able to use sports. I had to use other methods of trying to trying to move my future forward. But yeah, and it's kind of interesting. So you say you got lucky, but I know it wasn't luck. I know it was a lot of hard work that got you.
Yeah, it really, really was.
Yeah. So, but let me ask you about this though, because we're talking about the energy bridge, right? And track for you was a way of getting you out of the Caribbean or the Caribbean, right, and into the United States. But bridging light. So you mentioned poverty and that can be a hard thing to talk about, but hopefully it won't be too hard to talk about. But you didn't grow up with lots of means, right? And a lot of people in Jamaica, they don't necessarily. Right?
The minimum wage in that country is $1,900 US, not per month, per year.
$1,900 a year.
Man.
Minimum wage.
Jamaican minimum wage.
Okay.
Think about that, right? So growing up too, it's kind of actually intense because it's how I was brought up. Kind of fuel, kind of my intense desire, I would say, to really use energy. Right, that's one of the reasons why kind of bring me here, because I just not having electricity growing up, that does something to people.
So wait, you didn't have electricity growing up?
No, we had to.
Okay, well wait, let me ask you another question before you answer this, because I think I know what you're about to tell me. So, okay, so you grew up in a house. You didn't have power because you couldn't afford it.
I wouldn't even call it a house. The whole house is like this. And you like this little tiny little space. What? This is like 12 by 15?
Okay.
This is like the kitchen was there, the 2 beds were there, and my whatever. Like the place was so small. Like me and my brother, we used to, because I have one older sibling, we used to play like, kids ride pillows.
Yeah, like a horse kind of.
Like a horse.
Yeah.
Our parents' bed and our bed was so close we could have hopped up on the pillow from one bed to the next. Just, yeah.
Gotcha.
Tiny little spot. It was so, like, kind of in a position that we were in, coming from a culture like that, the thing that everybody steals is actually light. Believe it or not.
No, yeah, that I thought that was really interesting.
But think that the dichotomy of it, or just the opposite sides of it, right? A genuine culture that's against that, they'll sing songs about what they'll do to people that does that. Like it's a known thing. You don't do that, right? You don't steal. You don't steal.
Right.
Don't do it. Like at all. Like you're the scum of the earth. You're the worst. Just don't do it. You see? But in that culture, I mean, I don't want to put a specific percentage, but just kind of a country that 2 is like 3 million, tiny little island. In most country, majority of the country earns minimum wage.
Wow.
In most countries, right? Like,
Right.
I'm just trying to use some general.
Yes, in general.
Most of the
right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, in Jamaica too.
In Jamaica too.
Okay.
Therefore, how many people you think out of those 3 million is earning less than $2,000 a year? You know, we just trying to critically think about it, right?
Right.
A vast amount. Every single one of those individuals cannot afford electricity. They can't. How are they going to afford electricity? They can't even afford living. Squatting is another big thing, but let's kind of keep it. You know, they can't even afford to live. So how are they going to pay for electricity, right? They can't. So the alternative is to bridge light. Think about that. A culture that's so much against stealing, a vast percentage of the population has to steal just to be civilized, in a sense.
Just to have light.
Yeah. Therefore, they couldn't even call it stealing light.
Couldn't call it stealing light because you can't talk about stealing. Stealing's wrong.
Yeah, it is.
But it's if you're bridging the light.
You're bridging light.
Okay.
Right? So JPS, they got Jamaica Public Service or whatnot. They're the only energy provider, kind of like many of the co-ops in and around the US, right? It's just one, right? It's just and they just they discharge folks. But at the end of the day, I remember one distinct memory as a kid. I was no more than maybe 12 years old, probably 12 years old, and I was home with my mom.
And you were already very observant, right? We were talking about that earlier, right?
Yes.
Very observant. You're inquisitive, curious,
Trying to solve problems.
Yeah. So you've been watching what other people are doing.
Watching what the adults.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yep.
I've been watching what the adults were doing, and
you're like, how do they have light over there? They can't afford it.
They can't afford it. They're poor just like me.
Right.
I can stay in my house and see through their house.
Got it.
And vice versa. So I know they're not. But that's one of the neat thing about growing up in actual poverty. You don't know you're poor.
Gotcha.
Everybody around you is poor. I only started hearing about stuff like that when I started going to school and kids were just telling their story. But I came to find out that half of those kids were just making up dreams in their head because they may live up very far from where we did. So, for example, I live in a little place called like Makukspin. That's just a pure cane field. Basically.
What was it called?
Makukspin. It's like Makukspin, yeah. And it's like close to Innswood, but basically it's just cane fields.
Okay.
Cane fields. Another interesting thing why I knew I had to, as an observant child, why I knew I had to leave was I didn't like the type of labor I saw growing up. They were chopping canes, man.
Okay.
In my eyes, that's something you do in slavery days.
Okay.
They were physically chopping cane just to put food on the table. Like legit, most of the men that I grew up amongst, like the old, you call the OGs, the older guys, that's what they've always done. And they were getting old. By the time I was a kid, they were getting old, so they were dying off, right? But that was the example that I saw. It was like, how you make a living is you use your back and you like they had machetes this big, sharpen it for like forever, and they're just chopping canes. Like they'll have a row of cane like a whole football field. And a guy would take a row and another guy would take a row and they're just hacking away. Can you imagine that? My back aches just thinking.
That does not sound fun.
No. That's one of the reasons why I want is that level of, no regard for, like, they used to burn the cane. I don't even know the exact reason why they used to burn it, but they burn it. They kind of burn it out. I don't know if they're trying to get out critters from when they go to chop it, or it makes the extracting the cane sugar easier. I don't know, but they used to burn it. And that thing used to put so much black dust in the air, just fell on your clothes on the line, zero regard for, But again, it was not an issue because you didn't know growing up as a kid like that. But the distinct memory I had was I was home with my mom. The electricity went out, and we immediately knew what it was because what I've always seen was that adults run little extension wires running up the pole and just attach something on the raw wire and they get electricity. I saw my dad do it several times. My uncle's done it. That's how we've afforded electricity, how we got electricity there.
So you were seeing people climbing poles.
My dad, my uncle.
Your dad, your uncle, people that you knew, neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
You watched them climb up, physically climb poles and connect wires in order to get electricity to your house.
That's what I saw.
That's bridging the line.
That's bridging the line. I got to do quotation every time.
Quotes because
it's
stealing.
It's stealing.
Yeah.
It is stealing electricity, right?
I was so interested and fascinated by this. Apparently 20% of all the power in Jamaica is bridged.
Just that much.
20%.
Yep. Imagine.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Which is part of the reason why the cost of electricity in Jamaica is so high, because they have to produce that power And if 20% of people are bridging it, then that. But it's an affordability issue. It's just overall an affordability.
I gotta disagree with you on that one. That's probably the narrative put out there for when somebody who is curious as with good intention, like yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
You go to say it's these criminals. Why? I'm not. No, I'm not saying you're saying that. But
no, I'm not saying.
No, I know you're not saying that. But
that's what I was reading.
Exactly. It's what's out there. It's like these people, they're just stealing light, and that's why this rich company has to be charging more. No, that's not what it is. What it is just flat out how economy works. Simply put, electricity is high in Hawaii. Why is that? It's an island. And they don't have no source of generating or refining their electricity there. So they got to pay more to just get it there. And then building infrastructure. That's why electricity is high. Right? That's why it's high. I mean, the problem is not electricity being high. The problem is you can't provide a livable wage for your population. That's the problem. It is high, don't get me wrong, but we can't even figure out a way how to get 3 million people to, like, come on, man. Houston is bigger than that. Mm-hmm. You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
How can you not figure out how to get that tiny? That's not, and the thing is, like when you're growing up in certain environment, it seems big to you, but it's like, that's like a freaking tiny meteor could have just wiped Jamaica all off the map right now. Like a tiny one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like a very tiny one. It's just gone for eternity, right? So it's not even, and you know, I get a little passionate about it because, you know, I was one of those folks, right? And then it's just like, I don't want to, you know, that type of narrative, it's never really what it is. I personally believe is the rich companies trying to make a profit, and they're trying to make a profit by any means necessary, and they're trying to make the profit of people who can't even afford it. And then you see why people like come together and be like, screw it. They don't care. They're like, man, I can't afford this. I'm just going to steal it. And, you know, and I'm not defending it in so many words, because stealing is wrong no matter if you steal from a giant corporation or from the guy on the side of the road with his shop, right? The stealing is wrong totally. But this, I don't like things getting spun.
Yeah, I get it. So in your situation then, you remember, and there was you were about to start telling us about this vivid memory.
And so on that tangent, but yeah.
And the thing is, no, that's okay, because the thing that's super interesting is that your vivid memory, I want you to tell that story, your vivid memory, you ended up not bridging the light, but you came so close. So tell us about that.
So when I said I was like 12, I was home with my mom, the light went out, and I was like, man, the JPS guys came through, and they kind of just haphazardly yanked off the lines, right? Because they're just yanking off, right? And then I went outside and I saw that, and I ran, got the ladder. I ran and got some construction gloves, those big, thick ones, and I put it on the pole and I started climbing, trying to be a man when I'm just a boy, right? And my mom didn't like the idea, and I was climbing. My heart.
Let me get this right. Your mom didn't want you to climb a power pole and try to connect some wires.
Right.
Go figure. Okay, so she didn't think that was a good idea.
She said, no, don't do that. But again, you know, being stubborn, thinking I know more than I do.
Because, I mean, you're an inquisitive kid. Yeah. You know about electricity.
You're right. I don't get killed.
Yeah. Okay.
Took the ladder. Not, you know, she's saying no. And I took the ladder. I started climbing. All while my heart, if I think about it now, I can feel how my heart was beating in my chest, like right now. fear than I ever felt before. I was like, man, I think I can figure this. I've seen them done it a lot, climbing up. But when I was like halfway, my mom started wailing. Like, stop regulus. She was like, no, Sheldon, don't do it. Don't go. It was like hollering like I was already dead.
Okay.
Like that type of ball. You know, that gut ball, like you hear it, you know, when you're really mourning, like initially or whatnot. And that just kind of draw my attention, and I looked over at her for a quick second, and I was like, I second guessed myself, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I should touch that line today. I'm 100% certain that if I had gone and messed with that wire, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And that kind of led to the passion that I have to have the ultimate privilege to be in the U.S. and even take it one step further, have the means or the ability to start my own solar company, my energy company, right? And then it gives me this zeal to say, man, as a child, you could not even afford electricity. And then now growing up, trying to, finding yourself and everything like that, you are actually using a new, I wouldn't say new, using renewable source of power to actually help people to have affordable electricity. You know? So it really drives a lot of my passion that I have for this and for the renewable industry, for solar. I tell you what, this is also a true story. When I was maybe younger than 12, I had an idea. Because I think I was more inquisitive than I thought, now that I think back. As a child, I really did. I had this thought came to my head. Again, remember I had this disdain for the cane fields, right? I had that's like base level. I hated it.
Yep.
I wanted to do everything to get away. As a matter of fact, all through college, I used to remind myself, you make sure you do good, because the only thing for you if you go back home is to go chop cane. That's why I keep myself on my toes. I'm like, man, you ain't getting the grades. You want to go chop cane? Man, you're wasting time. You want to go chop cane? You see what I mean? So I don't want to chop cane. But as a child, my disdain for the cane field, because I grew up in it, I played in it, like, because I got very allergic skin, and those bands, when they cut you, oh my, if you got allergic skin, it just swells up. But I still played them because it was very fun. We play all type of game, Indian and cowboy. We play shootout. We played, and we made some very artistic guns, man, with clay. We go fishing, and you got to dig up worms. And out of the mud that you dig up from the worm, we used to use them to make all type of stuff.
Okay. All right.
And oftentimes it would be like guns. So we used to play all type of games with those things, and it was just interesting growing up in that environment. But being in those cane fields, one day I was thinking to myself, what if someone would just cut down these stupid cane fields and actually replace them with solar panels? Mind you, at that point, I didn't even knew what a solar farm was. That was just an idea that just popped in my head. But here, my little brain dissuaded me in less than 5 minutes. Because obviously I don't know anything. This was maybe like 10 or even younger, right? I told myself, I was like, well, solar panel, they're shiny, right? I don't even know what a solar panel is. I just probably heard some brief one conversation or whatever that, it provide energy or whatever, right? And then I dissuade myself. I was like, well, you're going to put a huge amount of solar panels in huge fields. But how is it going to affect the planes when...
Oh, you thought it was going to mess up the planes flying overhead?
That's what I thought to myself. I was like, the plane is going to reflect and it's going to cause accident in the air. That's a dumb idea, Sheldon. That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
But that actually came to my mind, and so I used to remind myself of different things to go through college, make sure I get the good grades, do everything right. Came to the US, and then this is where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
This is where it gets tricky.
Okay, well, let's talk about that for a minute. But I just because I think this is really important. So we're talking about the energy bridge, right?
Bridge,
right? And so track. We talked about track as being that was the bridge that basically got you to the U.S.
Correct.
But even before that, your experience with energy, and needing and wanting energy, you were so desperate for energy that you were super close to bridging your own energies, basically filling it,
Bridging my death.
yeah, you almost died.
I would have died if I touched that one.
So this is an intimate issue for you, and has been your entire life.
Very intimate.
And then so from there, when you said it gets tricky, there's a whole other set of stories that you told me about what happened. When you got to the U.S., you ended up in a couple different schools, but you made your way to Houston. So just we could talk about some of that stuff if you want to. But you made it to Houston, and you ended up running for where did you end?
So I got recruited by LSU, but to go to a small school called Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri.
Okay.
I went there, and it wasn't a good experience.
It wasn't a good experience.
Not at all. It was like time stopped. Have you ever watched like some of those old movies, and you kind of see like those brick rolls, and like you'll see a store with a mannequin but no people in it?
Okay.
With the place where I went to, that's kind of like how it looked. It's like it was weird. It felt funny. I was like, I would walk and feel like, man, I would have not want to be here 50 years ago.
Right.
My experience there was not good. That school actually made national news back in my country because they were prejudiced, and they were very racist towards a lot of Jamaicans, and it was very a really sad thing, because where I grew up, it was mostly just black folks. I didn't really experience it like that, and then come here and then have this, somebody that's not my race just wag their finger in my face and say, you don't belong here. It was like jarring.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so jarring. I didn't realize what he meant until like 2 years after. I didn't even know he was being racist to me, because I didn't knew really what it was. That's kind of weird, but it's the truth. Like wagging, like have me braced up, my back against a wall, wagging your finger you're like freaking 50, 60 years old, and wagging your finger in a little 19-year-old face, telling you don't belong here. I knew I kind of understood what he was saying, but anyways, long story short, trying to escape that, went to New York. That wasn't any better, man. I thought I was big this. Leave that. A guy named Linden recruited us from Lindenwood to go to a guy named Linden, right? I don't have any luck with the name Linden.
Right, no, apparently not. Yeah.
A guy, Linden, recruited me from a school called Lindenwood. That didn't go right, because he said, leave those racist people in. He was leave those racist people in Missouri, man. Come to New York. People here don't care about that type of stuff. I was like, okay, sure. I didn't really have any options at that point, because they expelled me for no good reason. Okay, like just because of everything like that. They kicked me out of school, and then they say just go back home and everything like that, with zero proof. They're saying that I fought when nobody saw the fight. It was a scuffle between me and my roommate with the doors locked. He went and snitched that we had a scuffle, and you expel 2 teenagers for that? Nobody got hurt. There was no cuts, nothing. It was his word against mine. And you're going to expel me for that? Come on, man. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. That actually drove me for a long time. Because I'm like, I'm going to make so much money one day I'm going to sue those people.
Okay.
They try to cut my future short for no reason. Like, how do you expel two teenagers for that? They were trying to expel me, and then I protest. I went to all my professors, and they're like, Sheldon is a good student. Why? This is weird. Mm-hmm. And they protest along with me, right? Because with everything is good and bad, right? I was getting that mostly like from the dean and stuff, the racism I was, but like my teachers that they treat me really, really kind, you see? So I had that love from, so I went to them. I was like, this is what's going on. And they actually helped me, protested so much so they had to kick the other guy from school too. The one who snitched, right? So in my culture, they say when you're digging a pit, dig two. You ever heard that one before?
I haven't actually.
When you're digging
I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I experienced initially. Went to New York. This black dude was like, get away from these white folks. They're racist.
Oh, okay.
Lyndon brought me, he was a black guy from Canada. And he was, I don't know if he was either a coach or what, or is trying to become a coach or a teacher or whatnot at CUNY, City University in New York. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm a 19-year-old man going to New York. Who's going to turn that down? And I'm expelled anyways, running around campus hiding because they even locked me up, man. It was a bad experience in St. Charles.
Wow.
They locked me up. They kicked me off of a campus that the address is in my visa. Like,
oh man,
the address of the school. Where else am I gonna go? You recruited me on a false pretense, because it even gets worse. And I'm not trying to digress too.
No,
it's a real thing.
Yep.
They were running a scheme. Mm-hmm. They would tell you to come to US. This school would tell athletes like myself to come to the US that you're going to be on a full scholarship. And then all of a sudden, you're on your full scholarship, but then there's a thing called work study. Mm-hmm. Like, how am I going to work study, still run track full time, and still maintain quality grades? Like, it don't make sense. If you're going to be running track, kind of giving your school accolades, you do track and you go to school. Track is the work study.
You would think.
Yeah. But they want you to do work. I mean, so we would have to end school, go clean a hall like a 2 basketball field or even more. Back breaking work, like using mops. Clean that thing. Then we go to practice. And or some of our other colleagues, other Jamaicans, other Caribbean country, they had a whole scheme going. Would have to go clean dozens of toilets. Or some of them, after practice, they got to go in the kitchen and cook all the food for the entire school. It was terrible. Mm.
Yeah, that's not where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what was going on when I was it made national news in Jamaica. Mm. For kids like myself not to be lowered. Like, you think it's a better roads, don't go there. Go anywhere else, just not that spot, right? But anyways, fast forward to New York. This guy put us up in a hotel telling us we're gonna see the big city and everything like that. And we bought into it. I didn't have much choice. I had to. One day I went to the mall. It was a huge mall, right? And I was like, I'm gonna get a job today. I don't care. And I stood at the beginning of the mall, well dressed up in a tie, neck and tie, well dressed up, and I just start door to door. One store. So I started door. I think that was my first experience door to door.
Gotcha.
I didn't even knew that door to door was a job.
Right. Okay.
I'm serious.
Yeah. So you just your mode of operating there was, I'm gonna go get a job today.
Right. How am I gonna do this? If I have to talk to every single store in this mall, I'm gonna get a job. By the end of the day, I got 2 jobs.
Nice.
Can you imagine that?
Yep.
I was going door to door to door to door to door, talking to because I was just determined. Because unfortunately, when I was out of work, some of the guys that I was staying with, they started taking advantage of me. You know, you're not bringing in anything, and you're just like a leech. You're a leech. I was a leech on them, and they made it known. And it was bad for me. I didn't feel good, right? I only had like one guy in my corner. It was like, Sheldon, don't worry, man, I got you. But they're getting their scholarship. They weren't treating me right? I couldn't even go in the fridge, touch a single snack. It was bad. So that was kind of what propelled me, like, man, you need a job, bro.
And then, so so this is like hardship after hardship after hardship. And then you ended up on the West Coast.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So I saved a little bit of money up to use for gas money. So they were paying me like $13 an hour, but nobody told me that lunch break was a thing in America.
So you worked through lunch?
Every day.
Okay. Okay.
I never clocked out once. I did not know. And I just kind of worked. But they were so sweet. The lady, I'm like, the store manager, she was very, 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 very nice, gentle. One day I used to jog. It was a couple miles from work. I didn't have a car.
Okay.
I used to jog, man. I was like, I'm fit. I don't have a bicycle. I jog. One day I ran to work. I almost got frostbite. That's how they found out that I was running to work every day.
Oh, okay.
So I used to run to work and then stood on my feet for like 9 hours.
Okay.
Every day, yeah, for a period of time. And that's how I saved up some money. The guys who used to treat me funny, because they weren't really making money. They were just getting their scholarship or whatever, or work study, but they were more comfortable than I. They weren't as mean anymore. That's kind of like a stark lesson that I learned. Like, just have your means, have your house in order if you don't want to get taken advantage of. That's what, you know what I mean? And they weren't mean to me anymore. I saved up so much money, so I was able to provide the gas for the vehicle for us to leave from New York so a bunch of us hop in a vehicle. I talked for 16 hours straight because I was afraid that my friend was going to fall asleep.
Okay.
So, and at the time I couldn't drive. I didn't know how to drive, so we weren't able to switch, and I didn't have a license, I was already, so I didn't know how to drive, so I was talking, and we got to New York. I just remember New York still have a, because I went there with my wife. It was
just recently.
Yeah, it was nostalgic.
Yeah.
Because I was telling her when I was coming across the Brooklyn Bridge, or I think it was one of those, because there was a tunnel bridge going there. I just saw the sun, it was sunrise. And the sun was it was beautiful. Like, it was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in my entire life, was New York driving in with the big old sun just kind of lording over the big tall buildings, right? But as soon as I got into the city, I was like, it is not as pretty as I looked from afar. I saw this one-armed guy, just hearing gunshots everywhere. This guy just looked like he's fiending out. But anyways, this guy put us up in a hotel and paid the payments for like 2 weeks. By the third week, the clerk came
asking for money.
Yeah, and we're like, the coach got it. She was like, nobody paid the bill. Look at that, homeless in New York City.
Man,
after all that hardship, we just got in the car that just got a ticket, man. So all the little remainder money that I had, it not even that got a ticket, got impounded because we parked while we're in the hotel. It's crazy, right?
So your car was impounded. You had
my friend's car.
Your friend's car was impounded, so you had to pay to get the car out of impound.
The last of money that I had.
And gas for the car.
And gas for the car. Okay. So no, we nowhere to live and no money. We were just driving around aimlessly that same evening. Right? The same evening. I'm just being full on with the exact story how it went down. That same evening, we were driving around aimlessly. It's like, what are we going to do? We met this random Jamaican guy. Just random, just met him. He was like, I know this Nigerian guy, and he brought us to him. We didn't believe that guy put us up for 3 months rent-free in New York City. The same New York City that people say is so, hostile. And no, from my experience, when I went the first time, and even this time, I find people there to be normal. And from my experience, nice.
Yeah.
From my experience, very, very nice.
I think a lot of that has changed since 9/11. Maybe not the perception, but I don't know. I feel like 9/11 made a lot of positive change in the sort of the spirit and the soul of New York. And I don't know. That's just that's been my experience.
Yeah, because when I went, I didn't find too much of that. I just find people just grinding, trying to figure out life. And that's what I found again when I went, it's like a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, or just recently. But yeah, we got lucky. That got put us up in New York City. And at that time, I was trying to get into school, because now the school that we went to go to, we didn't get to go in.
Okay.
I was frantically trying to find a school. I eventually found a junior college to get in. After I got all my transcript from back home, from Jamaica and everything, I finally got into a school. And then this is what happened. I'm a matter of fact, they gave me a credit card. Like, my first week in America, it was weird. I was like, how you give somebody a credit card for $300? But anyway, the thing is, I went to the school. I got accepted to the junior college
In New York?
in New York.
Okay.
Because I was trying to figure out how to stay.
Okay.
Because my life is upended.
Right.
I got into the school, just kind of hustling, trying to figure out how to get in school. I got in a school, and after I got in, they said, okay, you can get in, but you can be on a payment plan. Remember, when I came to America, I didn't even know the difference between debit or credit.
Okay.
I had to get my first job to when somebody said debit or credit. In my culture, credit is not a thing. Mm-hmm. Either you can afford it or you can't. That's just it, right? The way I grew up when I was growing up. And so they, saying that, talking about, they got me a credit card. So I got into that school, and then I was about to try to get in, and they said, okay, well, you got to be on a payment plan for that, right? So they put me on the payment plan. And again, I don't even know what debit and credit is. So I don't understand anything about money, period. I thought the payment plan was I get to go for like a semester.
And then you have to pay.
And then I'd have to figure out how to pay.
Right.
That's not what that is.
No, right.
So I got in, and then I showed up to register for school. And then the lady said, to my surprise, you have your down payment. I was like,
oh, what's a down payment?
What is a down payment? Right?
Yep.
And then I had the same $300 credit card, and this is exactly what happened. I'm not making it up. I took the credit card out, put in the machine, hoping that there's some grand miracle is gonna just accept it. Again, I don't know how these things work. I know it's 300, but I'm praying for a miracle. Again, a desperate man hold on to straw when he's drowning. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I was desperate. So I put it in, hoping it would work. Clearly, after 7 denial, it was while putting it in, I actually got a cough. This is exactly what happened. Because I was frantically calling for everybody that I knew, letting them know my situation, that I'm pretty much homeless in New York, and I needed to figure something out. So I was calling everybody that I could, trying to get some type of money for this note payment or something like that, or just to survive at the time. It wasn't happening. And as I was putting in my card, the card was being declined. A friend called me, Davian, called me. He was a St. Jago graduate too. He was like, Sheldon, Sheldon, pack your bag. You're going to Oregon. While all that was going on, he just called me. I don't remember exactly if I had called him previously, a couple of days before or something like that, but in that specific moment, he called me. At that point, I didn't even know what Oregon was.
Okay.
When he said Oregon, you know what the first thing come in my mind? cowboy hats and tumbleweeds.
Okay. All
This
right.
is in 2007.
Okay. Right.
I don't know. Like,
Right.
you gotta understand, I'm coming from like a village.
Right.
I'm a village cat coming into the U.S. trying to figure out. And can you imagine the culture shock coming from cane fields to the tallest buildings in the world? Like, that in itself was a culture shock. So now I got to go somewhere else. Is that going to be like riding horses?
So you did. You went to Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got on a plane and I went to Oregon. Oregon was a beautiful experience.
Okay. So you ended up, and you went to a college there.
Yeah. I went to Mount Hood Community College.
Okay. And you ran track for them.
Ran track, won every single thing that they have to win there.
Nice.
Yep,
Okay.
won every single thing.
And then you end up in Houston
And then I ended up
at TSU.
coming into TSU. And
Did you run track for them too?
TSU? Yeah, I captained their team and everything like that. In Oregon was an awesome experience because I get to meet some phenomenal people. And in life, things got to get balanced, right? I had this horrible experience with racism in St. Charles. And then I went to Oregon and it was like, oh, not all people are bad.
Right.
It was a beautiful balance because I wasn't familiar with white people at all. Like, I didn't know none. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the first introduction I got was like, oh my God, this is what, you know what I mean? So I thought that's what it was. So when I went to Oregon, I was like, oh my God, thank God.
Right.
And then that's how I try to figure out, okay, you got to judge somebody based off their merit. You can't just judge them based off just how they look.
Right.
You see? I met this gentleman, a white gentleman. Even today, I kind of call him like my American parent.
Okay.
He was white. His wife was, she was Cherokee, right? And they basically adopted me, man.
Okay.
They respected my work ethic. Because in Oregon, I was running track. I did actually pull the same move in New York when I went to Oregon, even though I kind of did not necessarily have to. I went to Oregon and I told my coach, drive me to every single restaurant.
Okay.
I ended up with like 5, I don't know, maybe like 3 restaurant jobs.
Okay.
So I was running track, going to school, and working.
Okay.
2 jobs. I was working for Old Navy for half of the day, and then the remainder of the day, I had to do the like in the summer months, I had to do the restaurant jobs.
Okay.
It was weird. I was working so much. This is a funny story. Y'all, you're gonna laugh at this. Because like my schedule would be like I'd get up like at 5, hop on my bicycle, like but that's a thing in Oregon though. People ride. It's beautiful,
Right.
Ride. I used to ride a lot, and guys would be like, "Man, I would tell them you got horsepower, but I got manpower, and I'll beat you because I'll beat them in traffic." I'm a fit athlete,
Right. Yeah.
I looked at it as a part of my training,
Right.
and I would, ride to work. After I get off work, I would have to go to school, train, right? And then like in the evening, the restaurant job, I could start like 6, like 5, 6, right? So I'd work from like 5, I would work like from 5 in the morning to probably like 11 for the Old Navy.
Okay.
I'd have to go to school and training in between 12 and 5. And then I'll get to that other job that starts at 5. It was supposed to go from 5 to like 9, but oftentimes it ends up till like midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning.
Gotcha. So if anybody's wondering whether you know how to work hard, you definitely know how to work hard. Okay. All right. So you end up. So you stay there for a while. You come to Houston. You're at TSU. Okay. And then so let's just fast forward a little bit. So you make it to Houston. I used to say all the time. People ask me how I got to Houston. I say, well, I drove. But I always say I got here as fast as I could. Right. I got here as fast as I could. And so it sounds like you too, right? And if actually sort of, if you run the running metaphor, you've been running, trying to get.
Well, with a lot of help though.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a lot of help, because
Yep.
I, again, like in Oregon, if I didn't met this couple, there's no way I would have. I still doing all that. The 2-year degree, I still finished it in a year and a half.
Man, all right. So okay. So now you're at TSU here in Houston, and then how did you get involved in solar?
So that one is another long story. I don't know.
Well, what's the short part of that one?
So
We wanted to talk about your origin and the whole bridging.
Yeah. So that whole thing started from just, doing track, captain a TSU track team for like 3 years. Didn't get to do a lot of work, because you get to do interns while you're in college. But when you're doing athletics, you don't get that opportunity.
Okay.
So because of that, I didn't have a lot of any type of work experience. So I had to kind of figure out how to start working, right? And I wasn't finding any job coming out of school because all the job was like work experience, and I didn't even have a single work study. So I couldn't really find that type of job. And I kind of like wavered. I was like, I'm probably not find work or whatever. But eventually, I was late. It was just like I was getting lackadaisical. I would like sleep till like 10. You know what I mean? Not really being as productive after you do all this hard work to graduate school is like, what's going on? You tried, but you didn't get a job. So what are you going to do? You know what I mean? And I did not kind of pursue hard enough. And then one day I was like laying down. I was like, what the hell are you doing, Shitty? Did you come to America for this? To lay in your bed until goddamn 10 o'clock or what? You see? And then I kind of popped up. And then I made finding a job.
That's a good idea. I've told a few people in my time that if you don't have a job, your full-time job is finding a job, right?
Yeah. I made finding a job, and then I would just get up as if I had a job, get on the computer, apply to a whole bunch of places, and eventually a company called me, and I went to work there, and it was I actually applied because I didn't have any sales experience at all. Clearly, I have no work experience. So how is even sales? I wasn't even thinking to get in a sales career. Sales, that's why would you have a bunch of people tell you no? Matter of fact, I didn't even know what sales was. I didn't even know, like, period. It was like selling stuff. So I applied for a draftsman job, or a draftsman, like a CAD designer, because I did a lot of that because I studied industrial technology with a lot of focus on like construction in college. And then I, went to apply for that job, clearly with the job title and everything. So I don't know how my resume ended up in sales.
Okay.
That's actually how my resume ended up in. I don't know how it did, but it ended up in sales. The sales lady, the recruiting lady called me, and we kind of hit it off. And it's funny enough, I had a baby at the time, and how it kind of broke the ice. Once we were doing like the video interview, my daughter locked herself in the kitchen.
Oh.
And I had to stop the interview to go get her out the kitchen. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My daughter locked herself in the kitchen, and at the time she was probably like 2 or maybe younger. But I think I was on daddy duties at that time. And so I got that job. I went working for them. I was putting in hours. I was the type of employee that would go in 8 in the morning and leave at like 10 at night. I know it's crazy, but it's what happened. At like my motivation was waning from that job because 3 bosses got promoted. And for me, that's very lucky. That 3 bosses got promoted. I never got a single promotion for that job. And my boss sometimes would come in at like 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, give me an assignment that is due for Monday morning at 9, and I would stay and work on it like at home and stuff like that for the whole weekend just to make sure that he has the assignment. Of course, you got people like that working very hard under you. You're gonna elevate, right? But I didn't, right? But I'm very fortunate for me to see that happen 3 times in maybe like 3 years. Because think about the average person, right? For that to happen to them, it's usually over a 15-year or 9-year period.
That happened to you 3 times. So you knew that was a dead end job. You weren't going anywhere.
I knew that
Got it.
corporate world was nowhere for me, and that's where's my blessing.
And so that was your blessing, and then you ended up. How did you? So you went and worked for Tesla.
Yes. So the same work ethic that I had at that job, all I did was just transfer it to solar.
Okay, so you ended up transporting your experience having grown up poor. You nearly bridged the light, right? But ran track, ran all the way as fast as you could, as far as you could. You made it over to the U.S. And you, through grit, determination, all kinds of trials and tribulations,
A lot of help.
and help. You ended up in Houston.
Correct.
You got a job. You saw 3 people promoted above you. You realized that corporate wasn't necessarily for you. So then you end up going to work for Tesla, and you all of a sudden
I actually went into work for a company called Solar City.
Solar City, okay,
And acquired by Tesla.
Okay,
And then at the time, Elon Musk, I think he wasn't digging salespeople too much because he figured solar will sell itself.
right.
He basically fired the whole, everybody. But that was one of the best things. It's kind of great, I guess, being the richest man in the world and can make moves like that because he just upended the whole industry because he was the leading solar company at the time.
Right.
So now he took over the company, fired everybody, right? But because of that, that's why solar has taken off.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Because all the folks that he fired, they went and started financing company, installation company, and sales company.
Right.
Which kind of fast forward with me, I worked for other companies after that. Since that time, learned the ropes, actually build another gentleman company from 0 install in Houston to hundreds. And did very, very happy customers and everything like that. And then it just dawned on me, like, you're doing great at the work. You know how to do the work. Why not do it for you, right?
And so now, sitting here today, you've got your own solar company.
Yep.
And installing the solar on people's roofs.
Absolutely.
You need to have people calling you back, asking you to come out, and
I get a lot of
and you're still knocking doors.
Still out there doing the grind.
Yep.
The grind never stops, and it's just kind of building from there and making sure that I
Treat people right.
Sky's the limit. Like, the golden rule, man. Do unto others that you would want them to do unto you.
Yep.
I live by that.
Yeah. In a positive way, right? So you don't want to, but I totally understand what you mean.
No,
so now, I mean, Sheldon, I can't imagine a better or more interesting origin story from the situation you were in Jamaica to sitting here today. And now you're giving back in lots of different ways. You're actually you're helping out the school that you came from, supporting TSU with some of your efforts. Man, what an awesome origin story. Thanks for sharing that with everybody. So that's why this is
such a passion. Yeah, it's a passion thing for me, and I love doing the work, and I'm encouraging folks to get it for their home, and I also encourage people to get in the career as well. Dennis, thank you so much for hearing my story. It was pretty neat speaking my story. I don't think I've ever really just kind of go from step to step like that. Thanks for hearing me out, and so we'll just kind of reconnect on Energy Bridge.
There you go.
Go from there.
Cool.
Cold Mains, man.
One love.
One love, brother. Man, I know that's a lot. You guys are like, God damn it, Sheldon is long-winded.